Now that we have learned about the process of bringing in jobs and editing them using the editor, we shall now turn our focus to some of the more advanced options available with the iJetColor 1175p. All of the advanced options can be accessed by clicking on the gear icon located on the right of the screen. When clicked, this will open a separate window with several options that face us. Across the top are FI1000, HP Advanced, Configuration Editor, and Get Support. FI1000 contains options related to the timing and positioning of the printhead during printing, as well as readouts for the speed of the belt and options for testing the feeder as well as the top of form sensor. The pen to paper spacing dictates the height of the printhead from the conveyor belt. The operable range for this setting is going to be between 5050 and 5120. The standard default as it leaves our factory is 5100. If you go below 5050, the printhead will be too far away from the page and will likely result in significant blurring, and if you go higher than 5120, you run the risk of the printhead crashing into the conveyor belt, at which point it will give you a print bar stall. Below that is the top of form offset. The top of form offset dictates the distance between the top of form setting. The factory default for this is 32,400. The units of the top of form number are 24 hundredths of an inch. So, if you know that your print needs to move by a certain distance, convert that distance into inches and then multiply it by 2400. For example, let's say that we printed out an envelope that needed to move towards the lead edge of the envelope by a 1/4 inch. Well, in order to move print towards the lead edge of the envelope, we would need to subtract a number from the top of form offset. Knowing that we need to move it a 1/4 inch, we would multiply 1/4 by 2400 and then subtract that number, 600, from the top of form offset, giving us 31,800. Beneath the top of form offset, we have the page gap. This is an internal setting, and it is not advised that you adjust it. Finally, we have the COM port. The COM port is the interface over which the printhead is able to communicate the belt speed as well as any feeder commands. This number will be set by a printware technician, but if for any reason your belt speed or your feeder should stop working, you can check what the COM port is by going to the Windows menu on the bottom left, searching for the Device Manager, and once in the Device Manager, look for Ports, COM, and LPT. And once in Ports, COM, and LPT, you will see 2 COM ports. One of them will be at COM1, and then the other one will be at some other port. We do not want to use the port at COM1, as that is just for USBs, whereas the second port is the printhead. In our case, we can see that the printhead is currently mounted at COM5, meaning that this is correct and it will display an accurate belt speed. The last thing to note in here are the 4 checkboxes beneath the advanced setting. The PCL files, REST interface, and TIFF files are all means of communicating with the printhead. These should only be turned on and off at the discretion of printware staff. However, the static page mode is one which you may turn on and off at will. The static page mode checkbox deals with the behavior of the machine as it is printing single-page static jobs. Under normal operation, i.e. with the static page mode off, the way that the RIP works is that it processes a page and then sends a copy of that page and its associated data to the printhead. This is how it works in non-static page mode printing, as well as on any variable data jobs. However, because it is sending one page at a time, there is a slight but definitely non-zero chance that you will overload the memory on the printhead, at which point you will see that the feeder will begin to pause in between every 10 pages or so. The static page mode checkbox is a workaround, so that when specifically running single-page jobs, the pausing behavior can be averted by changing the way that the RIP processes the pages. As a general rule, you will always want to have static page mode turned on, as it will make the machine run smoother. The next option we have across the top is HP Advanced. HP Advanced deals with settings and commands you can send to the machine. On the left column, you will see that we have mid-job service and pen recovery level 0, and depending on the revision of your machine, you may also see pen recovery level 1. These three are different levels of cleaning that you can administer to the printhead. Mid-job service is the normal lowest level cleaning that you can perform. Under normal operation, the printhead will perform this on itself every 1,000 pages printed or every 10 jobs sent through. Pen recovery level 0 is a cleaning that is more strenuous than the mid-job service. It takes about 2.5 minutes and cleans the printhead off several times. If your machine has pen recovery level 1 available, it should not be run except at the discretion of printware staff, as running it has a high probability of causing your service station to fail. This is because the pen recovery level 1 deposits a large amount of ink on the service station. Replace main PCA and HP logging are both commands that as well should only be run at the discretion of printware staff. In the middle column, check service sled will advance your service sled webbing forward without cleaning off the head. If you ever find that the top of the webbing on the service station, where it cleans off the head, has become dirty, you may run check service sled in order to move to a cleaner section of the webbing. Eject service sled will cause the service sled to be removed from the machine. It will simply roll back to the back of its channel, where you may pull it out. Install service sled will in turn bring the service sled back in. These two commands have their own video, which may be found on the iJetColor wizard. Finally, calibrate service sled is a command which should be run after installing a new service sled, as it will take note of how much life the service sled has left and begin to display it in the FI1000 menu, right here. Finally, download firmware is a command which will be run by a printware staff member whenever there is a new firmware revision to download, and stall recovery is the button you should press if ever you have a service station stall. And finally, replace print bar is once again a command that should only be run at the discretion of printware personnel. Beneath these buttons are these fields down here. On the left are the specific settings relating to the mid-job servicing. You can choose when it will do a mid-job service, based on job count or based on page count, as well as how many pages or jobs shall pass by. For instance, on this particular machine, it will perform a mid-job service either every 1,000 pages or every 10 jobs, whichever one happens first. So, if we were to run 10 5-page jobs, even though we've only printed 50 pages, there would be a mid-job service afterwards. Whereas if we were to run a 1,000-page job, there would be a mid-job service at the end of it as a result of having printed out 1,000 pages. To the right, we have the spit bar. The spit bar is an optional feature on the 1175p that allows you to print out a small jet of ink from every nozzle in between each page. This can be useful in limited circumstances, particularly in relation to printing heavy coverage, as the spitting of the lines will keep your printhead in better shape. Finally, we have the die gap. The die gap is an adjustment that you can make to the printhead that will allow for your jobs to not have any dark or light lines as a result of the geometry of the printhead. A deeper explanation can be found in the associated article on the iJet wizard, which you may find linked in the description. Next, we have the Navigator Configuration Editor. This editor is primarily used to make adjustments to the paper profiles on the 1175p. As with many of the things before, this is usually only accessed by members of printware staff. You should call and ask for help before attempting to make any adjustments in here. And finally, Get Support will take you to the printware support page, where you will find our contact info. You can call this number, 1-800-456-1400, extension 2 to reach the support team, or look up any questions you may have on the iJetColor wizard, or simply download the iJetColor remote support client.